everybody. Welcome to the Titletown Sports Podcast, episode 69. How are ya? We're your hosts. My name is Craig Stanton.
I'm Melissa Burns, and we're going to dedicate this episode to Rob Gronkowski. As we know, it's his favorite number.
Our 69th attempt at podcasting. Yes. How you doing? Yeah. What's going on, Burnsy?
Not too much, Craig. I'm excited. This week we get a lot to talk about, particularly with the Bruins. We're going to spend a lot of time focusing on them because they are red hot right now and very exciting to watch.
Red hot. Can't beat them until you can, but then you won't anymore. All right, well, let's start there then with getting caught up with what's been going around town. So, they've been, I would certainly say, the hottest team in town for sure, might even be the hottest team in the NHL. They lost to the Pittsburgh Penguins in Pittsburgh on Sunday, which ended their 19-game point streak, points in their last 19 games. They were 15-0-4, so 4 overtime or shootout losses during that time, and they hadn't lost in regulation since January 19th. I saw something on Twitter that said that Tuukka Rask himself, like, cause his win streak was longer than the team's. The last time Tuukka lost a game in regulation, Josh Gordon was playing for Pittsburgh. And I was like, oh,
I saw that too.
That is that does feel like a long time ago. More so if they had just said like December 15th or like whatever the date was. Anyways, that also, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say January 19th also has a special place in Patriots history this offseason too, as it was one of the days Bob Kraft was participating in the Asian spa.
Very, very interesting. That was the day that it actually happened.
Yes.
Damn, that's a really freaking long time.
Well,
anyways.
Yeah. So like they hadn't
the
even
All-Star
played
breaks in there too, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, that counts. Whatever.
Yeah. What? It's not. Listen, they can't control the calendar.
Yeah. Totally.
Long fucking time to not have
Jesus.
lost a game.
Anyway. Fun fact: it was the longest streak. I don't know if this is in team history or in NHL history. Maybe
Bruins history,
Melissa, but Bruins history. So team history, longest streak since 1941. The two games before the Pittsburgh game were third period comeback wins against the Florida Panthers and the Ottawa Senators. And now, looking ahead, they sort of play basically every other night for the next couple of weeks. Next three are against Columbus, Winnipeg, and then Columbus again. Cities that don't necessarily inspire fear in the hearts of hockey fans, but those good teams, particularly Winnipeg.
Yeah.
So look out for that.
We'll talk more about the Bruins
wagon
later on. Yeah, because, they're exciting to talk about. Celtics, speaking of the other team
these fucking guys
that's playing in town. In the last 2 weeks, the Celtics have gone 3-4. But their 3 wins were on the West Coast against Golden State, Sacramento, and then the lowly Lakers. The biggest story this year has been certainly Kyrie's relationship with his teammates in the media, including last week where he was saying he didn't want to be a star and he won't miss this shit when he's retired. The videos were all over the place and it's like, you don't want to be a star. Okay, well, you make movies, you make commercials, and you play in the NBA. So like, if you didn't want to be a star, you should have gone to college for accounting. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, every single interview he's done post-game this year, he's had his Uncle Drew hat on. So don't fucking tell me you don't want to be a star, bud.
Anyway, but now this week, after their West Coast swing, in an interview with Yahoo Sports, Kyrie is now admitting that he's made some mistakes and it's not who he really is. And he's going to try to learn and grow from his experiences this year. So maybe, as we've been saying all season, this could finally be their turning point. And maybe they have an opportunity now to finish the rest of the season strong, play as a team, and head into the playoffs in a good place.
Yeah, we'll see. I feel like I've read that article or that headline that says, like, Celtics win big against blank.
Yeah.
Is this the turning point they've been waiting for? Like, that article has been written probably 10 or 15 times this year.
It's like every 10 days you see that.
Yeah, and they lose a couple games they have no business losing. They win a couple games against them, or they might come off of that winning a good game against a good team. I mean, I can specifically remember like 3 or 4 times where I like turned on the Celtics and like turned to the person I was watching with and said like, this is their season on the line tonight. Like I've literally said it like 3 times this year. And they've always, I guess to their credit, begrudgingly to their credit, they've actually generally won those games. There was an OT game against Toronto that they won, I remember. There was a game, I think another road game against Toronto. This Golden State game certainly was big.
Yeah, and they came out and dominated.
There's been a handful.
Game.
That Philly game that they won without Kyrie. Anyway, Christmas Day against Philly also. Like, there's been a handful of them where they've just been like sucking and then put it together, and we've been like, well, did they turn it around? Blah blah blah. So personally, I actually so you may have seen some of the chatter this week about how like LeBron and the Lakers they're not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, but they will probably not make the playoffs, and it ends LeBron's ridiculous streak of finals appearances and certainly playoff appearances. I mean, he's gone to the last I think 8 or maybe 9 finals. It's insane.
That's crazy.
I mean, the guy's basically played like, you know, a season and a half or a season and a quarter every single season because he goes so deep in the playoffs. So I just read that. You know, I haven't really been following the Lakers closely, as you could probably imagine, but I read that and I was like, you know what? That pisses me off. So LeBron leaves the East, as we all know, and he goes to the Lakers. They're not even good. You know, you got Golden State, who is still obviously like the dominant force in the league, but by their own standards, they aren't playing that great. We'll see what happens come playoff time. They can obviously turn it on, but like as of right now, they don't look like they are the best version of the Golden State Warriors. You know, in the East, like you never know with Toronto in the playoffs how they're going to fare. Like they're a little bit questionable year in, year out. Philly still can't seem to get it together, at least against the Celtics. And so like, you just look across the league and it's kind of a weird year, like kind of a shake-up year for the NBA where a lot of status quo is not really there. And it's just like, damn, man, if this was the year we thought it could have been for the Celtics, like they really could have had a lot going for them because there's a lot of sort of seas parted this year and they don't.
Well, and that's what makes it so particularly disappointing because it's like if those other teams had played, you know, off their chain or like had these like incredible seasons that you couldn't predict, you'd be a little like, all right, maybe it wasn't the Celtics year. Like it was Philly's year. It was Toronto's year. But it feels like the field was wide open for them to just dominate, which is what was predicted would happen. And they have just choked at every turn. Like they can't get out of their own way.
Yeah, and you need a little bit of like, you got to be opportunistic in sports,
right?
You know, particularly in a league that is dominated by 1 or 2 teams. Like, you know, it like the year the Bruins won the cup, Sidney Crosby was hurt. You know, the year that the fucking Steelers won their first Super Bowl, that was the year Brady tore up his knee. Like, you gotta like, you know, like these things don't come along when there's really dominant players, and the NBA is sort of the prime example of this, where like one team or one player can really just sit on the league for a decade. Like, look at LeBron.
Right.
And he's just been sitting on the Eastern Conference.
No one can get by him.
No one's been able to get through him since the fucking Celtics in 2008. And like, you know, I don't know. So that just pissed me off that like all this weird turnover is happening in the NBA and the Celtics who were poised to take advantage of it. Yeah. And, you know, we're just slogging around in the 5 seed.
Falling short.
But
anyways.
Hey, let's talk about the Red Sox.
Okay. That's exciting.
The Boston Red Sox are continuing to play spring training baseball games.
Woohoo.
Oh, I didn't even know this. They lost 6 in a row, apparently.
Yeah, including today.
Spring training. So who cares?
Yeah. Exactly.
Some things that are still pending, and the Sox are going to need to figure this out, obviously, before opening day, are the closer situation, and whether or not Dustin Pedroia will be ready to come back and play regular second base this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what's been going on in spring training. I mean, you know, I don't watch.
No.
All I remember from spring training last year is getting on JD Martinez because he didn't hit a home run.
Well,
and I was like, nice signing, Boston. You
way
suck.
to go. Yeah.
Nice fucking DH you got there. This guy's a stiff.
Yeah, I'm not someone that buys into like spring training schedules having any bearing on, or spring training results having any bearing on how the season's going to go. Because you're like messing with things. So like you're not putting in lineups and matchups that you would usually put in. So it is very much like, who cares? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. But I didn't know that they lost 6 in a row. So they sure have. It's really great. Let's move it on to the Patriots. Most of the news around the Patriots is actually around the NFL in general, because the legal tampering period has officially opened, meaning that players are verbally committing to teams but can't actually sign until I think it's Wednesday at 4. It's a bizarre thing in the NFL. Like, just start.
I co-sign. Yeah, the start of the league year is Wednesday.
Yeah,
or the end of the league year, I should say, is Wednesday.
So don't have I don't know. A legal tampering period is just bizarre to me. Anyway.
Also, they need to find a new name for that. But that's an aside.
Yeah. So far, it's actually been a very active couple of days. Left tackle Trent Brown has agreed to a deal with the Raiders. Trey Flowers announced that he's heading to Detroit.
That sucked. That was just yesterday,
sucks.
Right?
Yeah, yesterday he put a nice Instagram post to the Patriots fans up, and it's like, damn, that's a big loss. The Patriots were actually reportedly in on wide receiver Adam Humphries, but he ended up going to the Titans. And so the only moves that the Patriots have ended up making is they've tendered a deal to Jonathan Jones and Josh Gordon, meaning that if either of them signed with a different team, the Patriots would get compensation for it, but we'll see. And they traded for defensive end Michael Bennett from the Eagles. Still on the table.
Yeah, that's definitely the biggest name.
That's
this
the big
week.
move
No doubt about that.
Yeah. I put this in just for you. That's still on the table is what they're going to do with Steven Gostkowski. And if they're going to end up re-signing him or if he'll move on in the NFL.
I'm not even necessarily advocating that they move on from Steven Gostkowski.
Oh.
I just get ready to go for some 2-point conversions in big games.
You got any thoughts on that Michael Bennett signing?
Yeah, I was going to say, I was certainly happy to hear that it was happening. I mean, he is a bit of a outspoken guy. Like he definitely makes some headlines, but he's not over the hill. He's a little on the older side. I think he's 33 or 34. Makes about $6 or $7 million a year. He was obviously a fucking force in Seattle. And then he was on the Eagles just for this past season, and they were going to cut his ass. So that's really the only thing that makes me nervous. Like, he was a really productive pass rusher this past season, like very recently, and makes a decent amount of money, but not an absurd amount of money, like $6 million bucks a year. That's not crazy. I mean, Trey Flowers got like 17, just for some point of reference. Jesus. Like, Trey Flowers is obviously someone who's striking while the iron is extremely hot and basically getting top market money for a pass rusher. And so, more than twice of what Michael Bennett is making. My only concern is just like, I don't really worry about like the Patriots locker room. Like, that's just been something that's so consistently fine for years and years that I just stopped worrying about it. But just like, as far as Michael Bennett's concerned, like, again, really good pass rusher who doesn't make a crazy amount of money, who played for the Eagles, which is an organization that has a fairly high tolerance for like nonsense, much more so than the Patriots do. And by nonsense, I just mean, general outspokenness with the media, sharing your opinions, whatever. Like, the Eagles are just much looser of an organization, as most NFL teams are. So I don't know. I just like, what did they see or that we're not seeing? Because it seems almost like too good to be true. Like, I don't know. I mean, I hope it's not, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, he already announced that, like, and apparently talked to the Patriots about the fact that he plans on staying in the locker room during the anthem, and that's just what he does. And so it sounds like maybe they've had some of those conversations about like what the Patriots' expectations are and how they choose to run their organization.
Right.
And then what are things that for him feel like non-negotiables, and have, maybe that was a part of the process, was making sure that they could agree on, what does media coverage look like and social media in the Patriots locker room compared to some of the other teams he's played on. Because if they talked about him staying in the locker room, then it makes me feel like the Patriots were also thinking about those things and wanting to make sure that there was some clarity heading in.
Yeah. I've also been a little bit annoyed this week with like just sort of the way that he's been talked about. Like, first of all, lumping him together with Martellus Bennett is just something that annoys me, because like, yes, they're brothers, but they are like separate people. And also,
they're not the same person.
Like, all right, like, okay, Michael Bennett's got some, like, he's got a rap sheet. Like, who the fuck doesn't in the NFL or in life for that matter? And like, I don't like how like the fact that he's like an outspoken person, like not even in a political way, like just like he'll just talk to the media and like answer questions and actually has a personality. Like, why that is something that we should be like worried about is a mystery to me, particularly on this team. But anyways, yeah, I mean, I'm bummed to see Trey Flowers go. I'm glad they got someone to replace him, I guess. And we'll see how it all shakes out, but it's a real bummer. I mean, I feel like Trey Flowers was like Mr. Patriot. Speaking of people that don't talk, like that guy was just fucking good at everything, did his job,
towed the line,
never stepped out of line. Like you hear all these stories coming out this week about how like loved he was in the locker room and respected, and he was just a total like, you know, buttoned up pro, like a pro's pro, like seemed like a really good type of guy to like give some money to and keep around.
Yeah.
So you know, he is now the latest on a long list of Patriots to no longer be Patriots, who the fans would have liked to have seen get signed. Yeah. But what can you do?
Yeah, continue being a Patriot. All right. Well, we're all caught up. Do you want to dive a little deeper into the Bruins and kind of what's been going on with them?
I would love to talk Bruins. I don't feel like we've really dug in and talked Bruins for like a long time.
No, we haven't been able to because the Patriots keep dominating the headlines, you know, winning Super Bowls, all that stuff.
All that bull crap.
Yeah, Jesus, give us a break. Yeah, but I think, you know, interestingly, in the last episode, you asked me if I thought the Bruins were a true
cup
champion contender. And I was like, nah. And I might have been wrong on that. I did say that one of the things I wanted to see was for them to beat Tampa Bay. They did that on home ice.
They sure did. I was at that game. It was great.
Oh, yeah. It was a good game. That's a good game to be at. And yeah, I just think the way they've been kind of playing and dominating has been good to see.
Yo, it's been awesome. I mean, I've particularly enjoyed, like, I don't think they've been necessarily playing like their best hockey all these nights, but there is something to be said about like finding a way to win. Like they've come back, like you said in the open there, like they came back against Florida, came back against Ottawa. Those are games that they basically barely showed up to, but ended up winning.
They won.
They've been winning a lot in overtime. Like, you know, just they've been doing it. I mean, they've been getting it done. Like they don't ask how, you know. I don't know if they haven't been rolling teams, but they've been getting the points. And the Tampa thing was a fun night, but it was for Tampa Bay, second night of a back-to-back, and they played their backup goalie. So you can't put too much into that one. But it was fun.
Yeah, well, you know, and I think it was one of those things. I mean, hey, we talk all the time, and it's one of the things we ding the Celtics for is like beat the teams that you're supposed to beat. So if a team, even 100%. If they're better than you, they're coming off of to your point, like they're on a back-to-back and they're playing their backup goalie, well, then guess what? You should win that game.
Beat them. Just beat them.
And so
totally.
they did. Right. Like, yeah, take the 2 points. They're yours for the taking right there.
Good point.
You know, and I just think like the consistency that they've shown, particularly, you know, when Pasternak went down with his like night out injury, you know, there was some real concern about who was going to be able to score for this team. And one of the things that I love is that it's been a bunch of different guys that are stepping up. Like, certainly your first line continues to be strong, like, of course. But, you know, you're seeing guys like, I don't know, Heinen and like...
Well, yeah, Heinen is the guy who took Pasternak's spot on that first line. So, and he's been more than just a passenger. Like he's been putting points on the board. Jake DeBrusk went on a ridiculous scoring streak or a point streak at least throughout this win streak as well. Like the guys down on the third and fourth lines have been doing it. Chris Wagner, Noel Chari, and fucking kind of like the grinders. I mean, they definitely distributed their scoring throughout this point streak, and obviously the one thing leads to the other there.
Right. Which maybe is a good thing for them, you know, that some other guys have been able to find, you know, some of their puck luck while Pasta's out, you know, and like guys it kind of forces the issue a little bit, you know, it's a little like the Celtics run in the playoffs last year, right? Like your best guy goes down and it's like, well, we got to do it. Like how do we work together to make this successful? And they're finding a way to do it kind of mid-season here.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so here's a question for you regarding the Bruins. And I think we probably asked this same question at this same time last year when the Bruins were like ripping people's faces off. But the idea of peaking too early, do you put any stock in that as it relates to just, you know, having success not in the playoffs for a sustained period of time?
No. I think sometimes I look at it as like you go on a really hot streak at the beginning of the season and people are like, get all excited about it. And it's like, okay, well, it's October. Like, let's calm down a little bit. This doesn't necessarily translate into April and May.
Right.
I think this is the perfect time for them to be peaking because you're gaining your confidence. You're building your lines. Like, they're giving Cassidy the ability to kind of like tinker with things and try different lines together and like really kind of screw with it to see what the best options are, and how you can really use like every guy out on the ice in different scenarios. So I think it's the perfect time, and I think it gives you like confidence and dominance and a little swagger as you are getting ready and heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really believe in the peaking too early thing because it implies that this is the peak. And if they don't play well in the playoffs, it won't be because they played well in February. It will be for some reason. You know what I mean? It's not like there's a finite amount of good play that's available.
That's exactly the word I was going to use. It's not like there's like a predetermined like, well, you can only get this many wins, and so
right.
in the regular
And I agree
season.
too that like especially, and this happened earlier in the year with when they went through a whole rash of injuries all at the same time.
Yeah,
and certainly you're seeing it right now with Heinen stepping up to that first line which kind of bumps everybody or reshuffles the line underneath him. And guys putting the puck in the net is a good thing to have. It's a good confidence booster. Like, it's good to know in the playoffs if you're struggling to score that you have it in you somewhere. You don't just suck. Right. You've done it before. So yeah, I think that's a good thing. Although what I realized throughout this point streak, I heard a variety of interesting stats about the Bruins. One of which was that since Bruce Cassidy took over as head coach, which was, if you remember, it was on Parade Day in 2017. So after Super Bowl 51 on Parade Day, they fired Claude and they hired Bruce Cassidy. The Bruins have had the second best record in hockey, in all of hockey.
Wow.
In that time frame since Cassidy came on board, regular season, that is. And that to me was really like, I thought that was like, that blew me away. Like, we think of the Bruins as sort of like where their playoff output has gotten them, which is okay, first round, second round, sure, something like that, like not as like legitimate cup contenders. But when you look at it like that, second best record in hockey for the last 2.5 years, like that's significant. And it's honestly a little frustrating for two reasons for me. One, I get frustrated by this like playoff format that I do like, I guess. But it just sucks when like the best team in hockey, the Tampa Bay Lightning, and the second best team in the Eastern Conference, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Boston Bruins, are all in the same division together. So no matter what the fuck happens outside of the division, we're gonna have to play Toronto in the first round, and then presumably, if we get through them, Tampa in the second round. And like that is tough because those are just like the two. You're just guaranteed to play those teams who are as good and better than you, rather than being the beneficiary of your good regular season record and get to play a 7 seed or a 6 seed,
Right. Just because you all happen to be in the same division and the NHL works, you got to play out of your division. It does kind of suck because we play in a strong division, and so they end up getting like hosed every year. If they played in a weak division, we'd probably be like, factor. Yeah, this is the best. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
that's good analogy.
Big picture with the NHL, like when they came out with this new playoff format, as opposed to just like doing 1 through 8, seeding it in 2 conferences. Like I did like it, and I do still like it in a big picture way. But it just sucks when all the when a couple of teams happen to be really good at the same time and they happen to be in the same division. Yeah. The other thing that frustrates me, and this is like the thing I've been meaning to get off my chest for the last couple of weeks, honestly, is that when I heard
big
that,
market tease,
I was like, damn, man, like. This is a good team, and you've got, 2 of the most understated superstars, I think, in the history of Boston sports in Patrice Bergeron and Zdeno Chara, who are on the tail end of their careers, certainly in Chara's case, less so in Bergeron's case, but Bergeron's like 38, Chara's like 41. Yeah. They're on really reasonable contracts. You've got Brad Marchand, who's turned himself into an NHL superstar on a wicked reasonable contract. David Pastrnak also signed a really team-friendly deal a few years ago. And like, you've got these guys, you've got this window. I mean, say what you will about Tuukka Rask, but he's a good freaking goalie. He's not like a mess. And like, I just, if they I feel like they have the pieces to make another real serious run, you know? And just the fact that they haven't gotten out of the second round since what was the year they lost to the Blackhawks? 2013? Like, that pisses me off. Because it's like, and you know, if you remember last year where they got Rick Nash and all that stuff, and like, I was a big fan of that trade. I liked the fact that they like were going all in on last year.
We were all in. Yeah.
And it's just frustrating to me that like, you know, part of it is running up against Tampa, who's a fucking powerhouse. And like, but I feel like there's another component of just like not really investing in like the window, you know?
Well, that's what I was going to say is like, do you feel like it's them not living up to their potential, or do you think it's they just keep running into better teams? Because that does happen. Like, as good as the Bruins are playing, Tampa Bay is still the better team. And they're, as you know, as great as we're like giving them all this credit for, they're tied with Toronto right now, or they're like relatively like, I think they're 4 points ahead of Toronto right now. You know, so it's not like they've been playing so well that they've separated themselves from the pack and are like leaders of their division even and should be the ones like taking home the cup. Like, they're still playing in a super competitive division and league that, you know, I think for the most part does a fairly good job with parity, particularly amongst the top. And so, you know, it's like, is it them not living up to potential, or are they just running into teams that are ultimately better than them?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you know, I mean, if Tampa wins the cup this year, like that will be the narrative, right? Is that like, you know, they were just up against a wagon of the Tampa Bay Lightning. But the only thing, my rebuttal to that would be both of those teams, Toronto and Tampa, have been much, 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 much more active with trades and free agent signings over the last 3 or 4 years than the Bruins have. And that's like not even close.
So you're looking at it from a front office perspective.
Oh,
like,
definitely.
Are they doing
Definitely. Like, that's what I mean when I say like investing in the window. Like, I couldn't possibly, as a fan, ask any more out of Zdeno Chara or Brad Marchand or Patrice Bergeron or David Pastrnak. You know what I mean? Like, they are who they are, and they play great, you know, most of the time. What I'm saying is just like, the Bruins, like front office wise, management wise, Don Sweeney wise, is like, come on, man. Like, you've got such a good, like, I feel like Patrice Bergeron and Zdeno Chara have just been here for so long, and they've been so like dependable and reliable and professional for such a long time that it almost gets overlooked. Like, it's just like,
100%.
Like, that's not easy to replicate. Like, that's not going to be easy to do again. Like, having 10 plus years of like consistent, really good leadership, veteran leadership on your team, like, that's something you need to take advantage of. And it's just like, I get frustrated when I look at like, you know, last year when the New York Rangers were having that fire sale, like we were talking about who was going to sign Ryan McDonough. We ended up getting over the hill last year before he retires Rick Nash. And like Ryan McDonough goes to Tampa. This year, there's the big John Tavares sweepstakes. John Tavares goes to Toronto. Like, you know, we're in on all these players, but none of them come to us. And like, I just get frustrated by the fact that like, I mean, we are going up against better teams a lot of the time, but some of that is it's our own making, you know?
Yeah. I just wonder if it's like they're too conservative with thinking about the future. Like, they're not willing to, you know, there's a reason that we've had 10 years of pretty sustained success. I could not say that sentence. You know, and like they've won one cup and
went to
but
another,
they're always there. You know, they're like around, they hang in there, they keep the season interesting. And so I wonder if there's like that fear of being on the wrong end of the big deal.
Oh,
and
yeah,
all of a sudden,
that's what I hate though. That what you just described is exactly what drives me nuts. Like, then you're the Cincinnati Bengals, right? Like, you're like you're like guaranteed early, you know, an interesting regular season, maybe an early round playoff exit every year, and then like, you know, see you next time. Like, that's what drives me nuts. Being in the middle is maddening. You know, either be at the top or like go through a rebuild. Like just being complacent with like making the playoffs and like maybe kind of sort of making it interesting is like that's what drives me crazy.
All right, you want them all in or all out?
I want them all in. Again, that's why I was in on Rick Nash last year, even though it didn't really work out and they lost a first round pick for it. Like, I was a fan of the deal before Rick Nash even put the sweater on. I was like, I like what this says about the attitude of the front office towards the team on the ice,
Yeah, that they're going to give them every piece they can get.
Totally.
Okay.
So we shall see. But anyways, that's my big Bruins take that I've been holding in for months.
Well, I think I know how you're gonna go with this, but you just mentioned Cassidy and how like since he's taken over, they've been the second best record in hockey, which is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about like his coaching style and particularly kind of like how he fosters some of that team chemistry? Like, do you think that's him or do you think that's the players themselves? Yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with Cassidy. I mean, they have become, if nothing else, a really good and really consistent regular season hockey team, which was really never something that they were under Claude Julien. And like in sports, particularly contact sports, like coaches get old, right? Like you can tune them out. I mean, it can happen everywhere and you see it happen to basically every coach everywhere eventually. Just wait long enough and eventually the coach will outwear his welcome. But like, since Cassidy took over, like you do not see a lot of nights where the Bruins just like simply don't show up. And immediately when he took over a couple years ago, you could see them playing much more free, much more offensive, much more willing to take risks. And so I think the players love it. It's a different game now than it was 10 years ago. Even like it's more offensive, it's faster, it's more skill, it's less physical, it's like all hitting. That stuff.
Too bad.
So like, I think the players love playing for him. He's a fucking breath of fresh air when he does these press conferences. He's very honest. He's not afraid to like kind of call out his players and say what he means. And I'm a big Cassidy guy.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan too. I agree. I think they're just so much like looser. They just feel like they understand the system more. Like they know what their strengths and what their opportunities are, and they know how to like use them appropriately, and they know how to like take advantage of each guy that's on the team. And like even when they bring in new guys, like I just feel like they do. Like Charlie Coyle recently joined the team, and I just feel like they've done a good job like integrating those guys quickly so that they're like one of them. Like you're part of our team now, and like you're instantly there. And there's like almost instant kind of trust and respect.
Yeah. And you see
and
that
willingness
too,
to like play together.
Yeah. There's a lot of story. I mean, these are like little things that kind of blip up throughout the regular season, but like there's been about a dozen times I can think of where like some guy will it's happened to David Backes a couple of times. It's like he's a healthy scratch one night, the next night he scores the game winner, right?
Yep.
Charlie Coyle gets signed by the team, his first game with the team, he gets the game winning goal in the shootout. Like, and it's just like Cassidy just seems to have this sort of touch and feel for like who's gonna step up when, and it just like I don't know, it just works out for him a lot. And I think that has to do, I think that shows that he's really got his finger on the pulse of who his team is. Yeah, I'm a big Cassidy guy for sure.
I think, one thing that I think is such an interesting like juxtaposition, we talked in the opening about the Celtics and how freaking annoying they are. And now we're kind of having like a love fest for the Bruins, and we're talking about how like fun they are to watch and how just like team oriented they seem to be, and like overall like it's a team I want to cheer for. Like if both teams were in the playoffs and I could only watch one, I'd watch the Bruins over the Celtics 100% of the time. But their win percentages on the season are almost identical. It's like 60.8 for the Bruins and 60.3 for the Celtics. But when you think about your feelings about the teams, like would you have believed that without like looking up the numbers? Like I never would have. I would have been like, oh, the Bruins are way ahead of the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit a little apples and oranges because teams don't dominate in hockey like they do in basketball.
Sure.
But it's funny because that's funny that you mentioned that because we take pretty much every win as like gravy with the Bruins, and we take every win with the Celtics as well. Yes, like
you should have
better
won.
have. So I mean, and that speaks to like they're obviously different in many ways. One of the ways is that the Celtics should be, and maybe still are, I don't know, we'll see. Playoffs are right around the corner, knocking on the door of like legitimate championship contention. In a league where it's pretty easy to spot the championship contenders, even before they play a single game.
No surprises.
Just look at the rosters and you can figure out who's going to be where pretty much at the end of the season. So yeah, I mean, and this is why we were talking last week about, all those stats about like the diversity of seed that comes out and ends up winning the Stanley Cup versus like the last 10 or so. And NBA Finals champs have been, 1 seeds or 2 seeds or 3 seeds.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's a good point though. I mean, and we just think about them so differently. I didn't even realize they have like literally the same record, more or less.
Yeah. And maybe it's an expectation thing, right? Like we expected more out of the Celtics than we did out of the Bruins, but it's just interesting the way, we can like turn the story just based on how a team makes us feel sometimes too. And like we've talked a lot before about teams being likable and like, is a team likable? And the Bruins are so likable. Like you want them to succeed. You as a fan, I don't know, I just feel like compelled to cheer them on because it's like, I feel like they're trying so hard and they want it so bad. And I'm like bought in to just the way they're playing and their, what they stand for.
Yeah, and I think part of that, I mean, and it's not as if like that is actually something that the Celtics used to have. And I mean, this comes back to the Bergeron Chara thing of like, what does your like team leadership look like? And at the time on the Celtics, when it was Garnett and Paul Pierce and Ray Allen, who were older players, veteran players, all of whom had never really won at the highest level in the NBA and came together and decided to put the team first before themselves and before their own stat lines and before their own contracts and money and stuff like that. Like that, I mean, those Celtics were incredibly likable. These guys have not yet figured that out yet. And I'm not saying that they will never, but this current Celtics group clearly has some like leadership issues. Yeah. And I mean, case in point of like good leadership is hard to find in pro sports. Like it doesn't just happen. You gotta like get the right guys and put them in the right positions and elevate them to that level and hope that they can be the guy you want them to be. Yeah. So
well, and I think it proves the point that like just because you're the best player doesn't mean you're the best leader.
Right.
And like your best player doesn't have to be, or your leader. Like I think we would all say Bergeron is the leader of that Bruins team. He's not their top goal scorer.
Right.
What the hell's wrong with me? He's not their top goal scorer. Could he be? Maybe if it was a different style of team, but he doesn't need to be. Like that's not the role that he needs to play. And he's willing to, adapt to that team style and like how his line plays and how he can be most effectively used. And I just think that's like the key to their success where the Celtics can't seem to get that together.
But it should be interesting. I mean, both playoffs are, less than a month away. And as far as just flipping back to the Celtics real quick, as annoyed as I am with the regular season, like I am still now excited for the playoffs, and I am just trying to will them to that point to cross the finish line because I think they are also just saying fuck it, like goddamn, can we just get to meaningful basketball?
You don't have to
again?
Guess. Kyrie said it.
He literally said as much. Yeah. So fair enough.
We'll worry about this
and then we'll see if the Bruins can fight their way out of this fucking division or not.
Yeah, no, sucks. Woo. Well,
good
we're
stuff.
Pumped about
good stuff. Bruins are a wagon. We're here for it.
Yeah.
Shall we move on to our lightning round?
I'm ready.
Me too.
I'm ready.
All right, Melissa. First question.
Yes.
Your boy, Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
He appears to be in a bit of an arms race with the Tennessee Titans head coach Mike Vrabel and Detroit Lions head coach Matt Patricia for a lot of the same players in this budding NFL free agency period, which makes sense because they both come from Bill's system, obviously, and know a lot of the same players, particularly Patricia. But so far this season, the Pats have not been on the winning side of any of the signings. The Lions got Danny Amendola and Trey Flowers. Fucking that guy Adam Humphries, the Tampa Bay wide receiver, signed with Mike Vrabel and the Titans. So Patriots have come up empty so far. So do you think that suddenly Bill's edge of picking the right players at the right time is being challenged? And this could be could this be a problem for Bill and the Patriots long term?
I don't think it's a problem. I think that sure, as people that have worked in Bill's system go out into the league, they're obviously going to know the things that he's looking for. But it's happened before. We've seen like Romeo Cornell and Charlie Weiss and everyone else under the sun that's been in his coaching tree, kind of go out there. And obviously they have those same experiences. And somehow he always manages to come up a step ahead. It's like he knows how football's going to change before anyone else does. Even the way he like all of a sudden went to a stronger running game this year because defenses are getting smaller to protect against the pass. And he was like, well, I'll take advantage of it and go to a better running back. And it was like, okay. He just predicts things that it's like other people are like, damn, how did I miss that?
Yeah.
Every year. So I'm going to give it to him until someone proves me wrong.
Fair.
Or proves him wrong, I guess better. All right. Going a little different route. MMA star Conor McGregor was arrested in Miami when he slapped a phone out of a guy's hand and then stomped on it because the guy was trying to take McGregor's photo. Is this Conor McGregor shtick getting old? And as a celebrity, do you assume people are going to try to take photos of you and you're going to be recognized out in the world?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is like, it's not shtick. You know what I mean? He's just a fucking angry son of a bitch who can't go out in public without fucking getting real pissed off. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really care about him getting arrested. So I guess by that measure, it's getting old. And yes, I mean, I don't know anything other than the fact that the guy was apparently trying to take a picture of him. Who knows what else he was maybe doing or saying or whatever. I would also encourage people, out in the world to like treat celebrities as human beings. And if it's not a situation that you feel would be an appropriate time to stick a camera in somebody's face, then don't do it. Particularly if the man could kill you with his bare hands and has shown a certain willingness to do so, not only in the octagon, but also just on planet Earth. So, fault on both sides. I'm both sidesing this question. But yeah, I don't really give a shit about Conor McGregor.
Know your audience kind of situation.
Yeah. Here's another one that's a bit interesting.
Yeah.
It's touchy.
This is
spicy.
Really yeah.
Oklahoma City Thunder's Russell Westbrook was caught on tape at a game threatening a fan of the Utah Jazz and that fan's wife. Since that video came out, it's also come out that the guy that he was drawn with apparently was heckling him like all night and made lots of racist and derogatory comments, not only in that game but had a long history of like specifically targeting Russell Westbrook on Twitter and on other social media stuff. And obviously Russell Westbrook let him know how he felt about it the other night. So my question to you, Melissa, is should the NBA suspend or fine Westbrook, and was he justified in yelling back at the guy?
I don't think they should suspend him. I think at a certain point, it's like people are going to respond. I think one of the problems the NBA has is just how close their fans are to the players.
I'm honestly surprised this doesn't happen more often. Like that blows my mind.
Yeah. Because they're right there. Like they're on the court.
Yeah. 82 game regular season with fans 6 inches away from the back of your head.
Yeah. And I do think they should probably fine him for what he said, just to like, this is our feelings as a league and like we respect our fans and yada yada. But hell yeah, he was justified in yelling at that guy. That guy sounds like a real douche. And it's like, who are you to say these things in public to another human? Like, forget the fact that Russell Westbrook is an NBA star. That doesn't even matter. Like, how do you say these things out loud on Twitter in any sort of setting to another human being? It's just like disgusting and it shouldn't be tolerated. And I think maybe the NBA should look at like, what are they going to do to that fan? Like, are they going to allow someone like that to be sitting that close to their players?
That fucking guy out of there.
Yeah. And putting them in that kind of situation.
Yeah, I mean, if the NBA wants to, give him a little tiny slap on the wrist, I mean, the only thing that it looks bad in print is that he said, like, I'll fuck you up, man. I'll fuck you up, you and your wife. And it's like, yeah. Like, literally, if you could just redact those 3 words, the you and your wife, I'm like with you 100%. Like, the only reason I'm with you 99% is for that one little part. Who knows? Maybe the wife was being a racist piece of shit too. Maybe she deserves it. I don't know. Unfortunately for Russell Westbrook, none of their shit, apparently, or at least not yet, got caught on tape or caught on camera. So, he might get something, but I think this is... I honestly think he comported himself quite well, given the circumstances, honestly.
The fact that he didn't punch the guy in the face,
and it wasn't
I think he
yelling,
should be actually commended for.
Honestly, our way that we phrased it here is it definitely what he was just kind of standing there doing his little warm up thing, talking. It wasn't it wasn't about to boil over. It was, it was pretty contained given
he didn't make a huge scene. He didn't bring other people into it.
And they're fucking human beings. Why would you ever expect that anybody's just gonna sit there and take that? Come on, man.
Yeah. It's just unacceptable.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Also,
speaking of
in the
fuck
NBA,
that guy stories.
Yeah, exactly. Also in the NBA this week, Knicks owner James Dolan banned a fan from Madison Square Garden after the fan yelled at Dolan that he should just sell the Knicks. Dolan said it was disrespectful. Your team is fucking disrespectful, bro. But anyway, should an owner have the right to ban a fan for something like this, or is it part of owning a team?
I mean, this is strange. And I think on the one hand, it's so petty that the owner figured out who the guy is, found out that he was a season ticket holder and pulled his season tickets. That's next level pettiness from a fucking billionaire who owns the New York Knicks. And if it is true, that is the worst thing that the guy said, is that hey, James, sell the team or something to that effect.
Right.
That ain't so bad. And
he deserves much
he's
worse
obviously
for how that team
representing
right now.
some contingency of Knicks fans that believe that he should sell. So
all of them.
Can't imagine that this Dolan guy, who I've never fucking heard of, is making any new fans making any allies among the fan base after fucking banning someone for heckling him, basically. But wow. I mean, that's next level pettiness from the owner to track the guy down and fucking pull his seats. I wonder if he's got a GoFundMe to fucking.
Maybe he should spend that much time scouting players as he does.
Yeah, right.
Scouting
I wonder
out
how
who
long
his fan
that
was,
fucking.
Maybe they would have won more than 13 games.
Whatever assistant of his was he had to say find me that guy. He should just say find me the next point guard for the New York Knicks.
Yeah, because they are a sleuth, that person, whoever found him.
Good work by them.
Yeah. Anyway.
Here's some Red Sox news. Fat, out of shape Red Sox pitcher Stephen Wright was suspended 80 games for a positive PED test. You might remember Steve Wright for throwing a knuckleball on average 65 miles an hour and a fastball at about 68. So those PEDs really put him over the top, I'm sure. Some players, notably Red Sox starting pitcher Rick Porcello, have in the past called for stiffer penalties for PED violations. I did not know that. And he said that he still believes that even when it impacts his own team. Way to stand up for your principles, Rick Porcello. Yes. Do you think that the penalties in baseball are too harsh, too light, or just right?
I actually kind of think they're too harsh.
You think so?
Half the season for one positive test? Feels harsh to me. Even in football, where it's way more rampant that people are doing steroids, you only lose 25% of the season. True. So, I mean, it's a long season, I get, but 80 games just feels like a lot for a first offense. I think you could go, maybe you go 30 games and then it escalates from there. I don't know. I just feel like that's a little tough. It does seem a little harsh. They're also obviously atoning for their their past. I remember it must have been over 10 years ago now, but remember when Manny got suspended? He never actually served the suspension because he just retired, but I remember seeing on SportsCenter that he got 100 games. I was like, oh my God. Because at that point, baseball players never got suspended. That was one of the first PED suspensions I ever remember happening. And it was 100 games. I was I've never seen a number that big in an amount of game suspension in my life. 100 games. Oh my God. Just reminds you how freaking long baseball season is. Yeah, seriously. That a guy can be suspended for 100 games and he's still going to play. Yeah, it's a lifetime. All right. Turning back to football a little bit, the Bills today announced that they're going to be signing 2 wide receivers. Cole Beasley for $7 million a year, and then John Brown for $9 million a year. Do you think that this puts some pressure on the Patriots to give MVP of the Super Bowl, Julian Edelman, a pay raise, since he is actually only making about $5.5 million a year?
Huh.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it does like next year or whenever his contract's up. Like, these are free agents, obviously, and they're just going to make more because that's just how that works. I mean, I'm sure Edelman would like to make more money. Who wouldn't? I think he's the benefactor of being in a good system with a perfect quarterback who suits his skill set. And, you know, Brady suits his skills and Edelman suits Brady's, you know? So it's certainly like a symbiotic thing they got going. I don't know if Julian Edelman would necessarily, his skill set would necessarily translate to like every other team in the league. And I think he would, I would hope that he like realizes that. But I mean, right now he's got all the leverage because the Patriots don't have fucking anybody else to on the receiving core.
Only wide receiver.
It's Edelman and a bunch of fucking no ones. So if he's gonna make a stink, now's the time.
Do you think that seeing Danny Amendola get cut after 1 year in Miami maybe changes his like perspective of how much his skill is worth out on the free market?
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's making this calculation of like, I would rather be not the highest paid wide receiver in the league, and then if I have a year where my production is down, I don't get fucking cut, you know?
Right.
Because none of this shit's guaranteed in the NFL. And like, would you rather make 5 for 2 years or, you know, 9 for 2 years, but you get cut and you never see that other 9?
Right.
It's like, well, if you can manage to stay on the team, which I don't think Julian Edelman is in any danger of getting cut. So yeah, I mean, like, maybe he's perfectly happy just kind of flying a little bit under the radar, not being like, not having this big target on his back for being a really high priced guy.
Right. It's an interesting perspective.
All right. Last question of the day. The Pittsburgh Steelers traded Antonio Brown and his dyed blonde mustache to the Oakland Raiders for a 3rd and a 5th. And he still counts, get this, $21 million against the Steelers cap. You'll also remember that Le'Veon Bell held out all last season and might continue to do so. So my question to you is, does this effectively take Pittsburgh out of the competition in the AFC? And are you more worried about the Raiders? And is Bill Belichick laughing somewhere on a beach shirtless in Barbados right now at how easy this all is? Yeah,
I don't take either of those two teams seriously anymore at all. I think the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers can't figure out a way to keep the best wide receiver in football is like, oh, it's such a head slap.
Or just get something for him. Like the fact that they didn't
a 3rd and a 5th round is trash return for him.
I'm going to say had past tense, even though technically I think they still control Le'Veon Bell. Like they had arguably the best receiver in the league and also the best running back in the league, and they are about to get nothing basically for either of them. Like that is either. And by nothing, I mean no Super Bowls, no draft picks, no players, like nothing, zero and across the board. You got nothing. It's
still hurting their cap. $21 million against the cap is a ton of money.
Yeah. I mean, it's I don't want to answer.
I don't even think Brady
but
counts $21 million against the cap.
No, I mean that's a big number. And I mean, like the cap is obviously a flexible thing, but still it's just an extra kick in the balls, if nothing else.
Right. It just makes it that much more embarrassing.
The AFC just continues to implode.
Yeah. And I think this is why Bill Belichick, you know, during the first week of free agency can fucking sit on a beach in Barbados, because he's like, these people are just going to take themselves out of the competition. Like, what the
Seriously.
fuck? They're not even making it hard anymore.
And yeah, I'm definitely not afraid of the Raiders either.
Yeah, me either. Not as long as John Gruden's their coach. Seriously. So that's 10 years from now. Call me in 2028 and we can talk about the Raiders again.
Speaking of big contracts.
Seriously. I just like, I don't understand. And like Bill's a genius. He gets all the accolades in the world for what he does. But for fuck's sake, like these are things that aren't hard. Like this isn't the stuff that people are like, oh, is that or isn't that a good decision? Like, no, unanimously, it's not a good decision. You've fucked your team now for the next however many years. The Raiders are just signing any big player they can get and like doing what with them? I don't know. Cause like Derek Carr is still your quarterback. So what are you doing here? What are we doing?
Yeah,
it's the same thing with the Bills. Like, Josh Allen's still your fucking quarterbacks. What does it matter that you signed 2 wide receivers?
I mean,
he still can't find an open receiver. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, anyway. Like, so goes the AFC, I guess. I mean, this is what's basically been happening. I mean, Kansas City's still sitting there. They haven't fucked up yet.
Kansas City's.
You know.
Yeah. Andy Reid. We'll see.
I mean, that's also the team that lost their star running back to a fucking domestic violence suspension halfway through last year. So you never know.
Did he just sign with someone?
Kareem Hunt?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I don't think he's a free agent, though.
I just went rogue on that question. Well, but he got cut, so.
Oh, right. Of course. Yeah, I have no idea.
Anyway.
Got any more takes to clean up?
No, I got very passionate at the end there about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like sometimes it's almost like a little frustrating. Like, you want a little fucking competition, or at least I mean, maybe not on the field, but here I am, like, far departed from any meaningful football games, like in fucking March. Right. Like, I wouldn't hate a little bit of a fucking, something to pump some juice into.
Something to care about in December.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was fun.
If good episode.
Anyone would like to interact,
if I do say so myself, good episode.
yeah. Good job. Good game.
Good job by you.
If any of you out there would like to interact with the program, you can do so. Basically anywhere on social media at Titletown Pod. You
can also call us and leave us a voicemail. That option is still there at 904-87.
Crushed it. TT Pod. TTPOD 90487 TT Pod. Let's get some good phone calls going for next week. You got to get your
all of a sudden I was like,
up.
I don't think those numbers line up.
No, you're snake bit right now. You gotta figure that out.
I can't. Yeah, I got the yips. I got the phone number yips. I can't get it. I'm gonna write it down. You'd think I would have learned that by now.
You would think.
Anyway.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody have a great week. We will see you next time. Episode 69. Over and out.
Woo!